Welcome. Today's video is going to be the first of a series that I'm doing, basically chronicling my experience as I've been through a grief journey over the last few number of years. And it's the journey of when I lost my wife, Abby. I planned to do this video back about a year ago and just wasn't at the right place to do it. But I feel this is the time to do it. And hopefully today I'll do it without too many edits. For today, I'd really like to start back at the beginning of kind of where all things started. And I get to joke about it now, but I say, I married the girl that I used to hate growing up as a kid. And it was kind of funny because back in the day at church, we had these big Christmas productions, and they're seen by thousands of people, and it was a really big deal, really huge sets and everything. And the one year it was a castle Christmas play. It was medieval themed, historical, and the thing was I was the chef in it for the castle, and everything had to be always live throughout the castle. Even though there was this different scenes going on, the castle always had to look live. The sets always had to be live, and so people were always doing things. So there was this girl who would be was one of the maids, like housekeepers, and she'd be walking around, she'd be dusting things, and then she'd be like walking by while I'm, working on stuff in the kitchen. She'd like dust my face and do a bunch of really annoying things in the middle of a production. And so for me, it was one of those things where I'm like, man, just like tell her to stop it. Like, that's really annoying. And she'd just keep doing it. And she'd do things or say things or mess things up just to be annoying. And it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, this girl just does not get it. She's super annoying. And I'm like 9 years old at this time, so it's petty kid stuff. But it was just one of those things where, there's this annoying girl. And the next year it was a historical theme for when the Jesuits came into Canada and were meeting with the Hurons and their first interactions. And we were part of a tribe at that point in the scenes, and again, kind of same things, always these banterings and all these different things that happen in interactions where it was just, we kind of clashed all the time. Just felt she was like the worst person. I was always like super frustrated and, again, kid stuff, but it was just one of those things where I'm like, what's up with this girl? She's really, really annoying. And so flash forward, 2007 comes along, and I had started coming back to my church. I was away at the time doing with a production company, and so I'd moved back and just started going to young adults again. And I was at the front foyer, knew people are coming in. There's a lot of people I didn't know, and suddenly I'm looking at the parking lot through the glass windows at the front, and you can see this girl walking in. I'm like, she seems so familiar. And then I totally clued in. Oh, it was her. That was Abby. And I was like, I didn't, immediately flip back to the, super annoying girl. I just saw this girl walk in. I'm like, wow, she's really pretty. And so that's kind of where my mind went. And from that point, started to get to know each other and hung out at young adults and different events and stuff like that. And really started to see the other person who she was. And there was a certain point where I'd actually started going to school to do teaching English as a second language. I was going to do missionary work in Guatemala. So I was doing this course through Western, and I had to do like a simulated lesson as part of my schooling. And I wanted to make like cue cards and a bunch of teaching materials, but I'm the most unartistic person. And so I remembered she's artistic. So I was like, hey, can you help me with this? I talked to her about it, and she was like, absolutely. I told her what I was doing, and she thought it was so exciting about the whole idea of doing missions work and teaching and all this stuff. So I'm hanging out at her house, and she's helping me with this material, and I just looked at that moment. I went, she's the one. She has this amazing heart for God, heart for missions, and all these things. And I was just like, she's the one. So I basically, at that point, had to kind of make a decision. So I through all these things, all these different feelings, I thought, I'm just going to share my feelings and ask her out. And I did it in the most awkward way possible, where I'd start off by explaining the whole thing of back when we were younger. And I'm like, you're the most annoying person, but I'd really like to get to know you. And she looked at me in this like complete puzzled stare. And then she was like, okay. And so at that point, we started dating, and 3 years later, we were married, and we started life together. And throughout that time, we were involved at church. We were involved in worship. We were involved with youth ministry, like all these things that we did together as just one. And that pattern continued on into our lives. We got into different ministries and things like that together, and eventually we started a family and had to figure out the whole how to be a parent and the whole journey of that, and figuring out how to make two single people be a couple and being one. And it wasn't easy through all these times, being a parent, being a young couple. We went through a lot of different difficult times. I remember times just after Thomas was born that Abby went through really heavy postpartum depression, and we had all sorts of struggles with our marriage and all these different things that had happened. And through that season, we really had to take stock, and we really had to rely on God to walk us through that, to heal our marriage, and just be able to move forward and grow into where God was calling us to. And so through that time, we had two kids. We have Thomas and Scarlett. And there's a bit of a gap, and there was a lot of things going on in that time period. I was just really burnt out with work and life, and there was a lot of things that didn't go perfect. And so we had all these struggles together at that point. And for a lot of the years through Abby's struggle with mental health and stuff like that, I was kind of the rock, and the one that kind of carried us through. And in the last 3 years of our marriage, it was a complete flip. It was just this burnout, all these things, struggled, had a lot of issues. We struggled to get pregnant, which was really disheartening. We wanted to have a bigger family. Originally the plan was, Abby was like, oh, there's 4 in my family. It was great. And I was like, well, there's 2 in my family. So, let's do 3, have 3 kids, and, we'll meet in the middle. And we went through the heartbreaking struggle of going through fertility clinics, and got bad news from them, basically saying that don't expect to have any more kids. And it was just really shattering for us, going through all these complications and all these different things. And we took that and we went to God with it, and we prayed, we trusted in Him. And after a period, it was just like, don't know where you're going with it, don't know what our future looks like, and looks hopeless. And then out of nowhere, we're pregnant. And it was just this whole thing, and it was just this shocker. And I remember it was a high risk pregnancy, and so she had to do a lot of different clinic tests, like ultrasounds and all those kind of things. And I remember the one day she came and she messaged me, and she's like, I got to meet you at your work yard. And at that point, I was just like, oh no, we're gonna lose the baby. And I just remember, her pulling in the driveway, we meeting up, and she shoves an ultrasound sheet in my hand, and I look down and I see A and B, and I'm going, what does that mean? And she goes, twins. I win. And so we had a bit of a laugh about it, as I was in shock of, we're going to have twins, because it doesn't, there's not twins in my family, in either of our families. And so we looked at this season of coming through all these different things and seeing absolute miracles happen in our lives, miracle of twins. And we just saw this huge future in front of us. And it was just like all this new realm of possibilities. We just believed in so many things. Again, it was just this super high note. And that's when our world changed. And just at the end of the pregnancy, we were in the midst of COVID, and Abby got sick with COVID, and was in the Simcoe hospital, and then had to be rushed to London Health Sciences to have an emergency C-section. And when the twins were born, it seemed like Abby was improving, but then things took a turn for the worse. And so what happened is I was sent home with the twins after 3 days, and then she was sent to a respiratory wing. And it was just this absolute chaos of thinking, what's happening here? Like, this doesn't even feel real. And through the midst of it, it was, we had to, we could text. She was on oxygen machines and things like that. And there was the odd time when she wasn't on the heavy, like the full mask, that we could video call. And, we were able to kind of communicate that way, but that was it. And one night there was a series of complications, and before I was really able to have a conversation with her, really, but moving forward, she was put on a ventilator. And it just seemed so unreal. And I would go there, and in the midst of COVID, there was only 2-hour windows in the hospitals for you to actually go be with your loved one. Didn't matter about the circumstances. That's just how it was. And so I would go there and I would pray over her and just believe God for a miracle, because I'd seen a miracle. We have kids that we weren't supposed to have, and I've seen other miracles in my life as well. And so we went to that hospital. I went to the hospital just, again, hoping and believing. And, as I was there, at her bedside, holding her hand, I would just think of all these different things that, we hoped and dreamed about for our future and our plans. And again, those whole things, all this didn't seem real in the moment. And sadly, there was more complications came, and she was passing, and I was able to be at the hospital in those last moments. And through the midst of all of this, I was able to be in the room with her, and in our final moments, I was to did a prayer of thanksgiving over her life. It was a rushed thing. They originally, do you want to have a pastor come? All those things. The timing was not going to work. They offered a priest, and I was like, no, I'm gonna do it. And I just did a prayer of thanksgiving, just thanking God for our lives together, just thanking God for her and the blessing that she was in my life. And it was not long after I had said that prayer that she went to be with the Lord. And in that moment, it was just so unreal, with so many different thoughts, the thoughts of the whys, the thoughts of how is this even real, in the midst of knowing where she was or is now, and because of our faith in Jesus. And this started my whole journey of trying to sort all this journey out, knowing that this is my reality moving forward. And the reality moving forward with my best friend that I had for 14 years. Now, this would seem like, this is the end of the story, an end of our story, but it's not. And the reason I believe that is Abby and I both had a relationship with Jesus. And as we believe that and know through certainty, through God's word, that because she had that relationship with Jesus, she's in heaven, she's in his presence. And through that understanding of that, it brings me hope. It has been one of the things that has carried me through that. In the Bible, it speaks in 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 13 and 14. And it explains we don't mourn like those who have no hope. And that it goes on to say that just as Jesus was raised from the dead, so we are raised with him. And again, that's the hope and assurance that I have in Jesus as a relationship with him. And that's a relationship that he's there with through all of the why, through all of the doubts and all the different questions we have. I know I can walk with him. And I just want to encourage anybody that's watching this, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, just to explore that opportunity, because he is our healer. And as we go through these videos, I want to be able to share about my healing, share about my journey, and share about everything, just from struggles in faith as a Christian, to things like dealing with anger with God, because there were times I was very angry with God, and my interactions with God were very tense. I always kind of explain it as, we were not on good terms, and as my journey went on, uh, God revealed Himself. God showed Himself through the midst of the chaos and the brokenness and the pain, and God has brought healing into my life. So I just wanted to share this as kind of the beginning of this series. I will be doing some separate videos on these different types of subjects, and just keep posted to the channel and see what's coming next. Thank you.